So you're making just a coffee every morning.
Hola, familia. Welcome. Good day to you. Happy philosophical Saturday. I am henceforth going to refer to this day as a philosophical Saturday. Oh, yay, it's good to see you. So, okay, just a quick note. For some reason, I don't know what is the glitch in the field, but everyone that has come in has entered, besides you, Anna. You're all Roxanne Ruby today. So there's like a fractal of me for some reason. Yay! Oh my gosh, it's good to see faces. If you're able to come on camera, please do so. It makes all the difference to get to see and feel you.
It's a
And
Zoom that I don't have to do, but I
if you know how to change your name, you can. Otherwise, I'm just appreciating this experience of that we are all but a fractal of one another. And as I was speaking with my mom just before y'all hopped on, like a room full of Roxanne Rubies is a very freaking productive space. So glad to know you and to know me through knowing you. And again, as you're joining, oh, it looks like it corrected itself. Cool. We've got Tanya and Josie and what? Azria Becker in the house. Yay. So many precious faces here and really honored and delighted to be taking the next step with this collective and within this conversation, this living dialogue, this community dialogue with one of my personal favorite authors and thought leaders, Charles Eisenstein, who also is Roxanne Ruby at the moment. Hi, Charles. Good to see you here.
Hi.
Uh, for those that don't know about this man's work, he is a prolific author. And the book, specifically the book, The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible, has been a blueprint and a guiding light for me over the past many years. Drop a one in the comments if you've read the book, The More Beautiful World. I believe it's been a compass for many. And as I spoke last month, what I really respect and appreciate about you so much, Charles, is that you have the capacity to bring words to this ineffable experience that we are in. That is, as you put it, the space between stories and this moment of massive unbecoming. Meanwhile, a becoming and an emergence that's taking place from within a world around us that is in many ways crumbling or transforming, metamorphosizing. And speaking of that term of metamorphosis, it is that way of the caterpillar could never maybe possibly imagine the experience of the butterfly. But here we are as the imaginal selves coming together and inspiring one another and uplifting one another and presenting new possibilities. And within this collective, for those that either are already part of Inheritance Collective or have been more in the periphery, this is a global movement, a community of people that are devoted to taking care of this inheritance that has been given to us and doing so in a way that we can pass it on to the next generation. And each month we raise funds and awareness for boots on the ground, grassroots movements. Right now, our efforts are being directed towards the Guatemalan Midwives Project and an effort to build Casa Tortuga, which is a birthing temple. And in that space, the traditional midwifery and the ancient art of caring for the sacred ceremony of birth will be preserved and shared with a local and global community, which feels like a really sweet way to be birthing this project. We only opened the doors to Inheritance last month, and as of today, we have 104 members in the collective, which feels like such a huge landmark and a huge success. And at the same time, meanwhile, we're working in that very tangible, organized way. Myself and our small team recently, we got Jamie Mock here. Hi, Jamie. He's been holding it down with me really significantly as a grounded masculine pillar. And we've been speaking about really with also within the inspiration of what you speak to, Charles, of the gifting economy and sacred economics, turning capitalism upside down. And while we are offering things to our members, we also want to create spaces where there's absolutely no barrier to entry. And that those that feel called to be a part of a conversation such as this and to be in the room while we have a philosopher and leader such as yourself, Charles, and all the leaders and philosophers that are here, because we are all teachers and students together, that we can be able to create that space of belonging and participation for everyone. So whether you're here as an official part of the membership or whether you're here as a guest, welcome. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your presence. And especially thank you, Charles, for giving your time to be here with us and to share your perspective and your words within this space. That being said, last month was a conversation that some of you were here for that was more of a dialogue between myself and Charles, and some comments in the chat, which was really lovely to feel that. So as we go, please be welcome to utilize the chat as a common space to engage with each other and ask questions and comment on what we're discussing. But then I really appreciated that you had the idea to open it up to the people and to see what is alive from within the collective and to receive whatever questions might be burning on the hearts and minds of those that are here in the space. So with that, the invitation is for this community council to exist and for any inquiries that you may wish to bring forward to create space for that. And with that, I would love to open it up to you, Charles, to speak whatever you would wish into the circle, and we'll take it from there.
Yeah. I love the Guatemalan Midwives Project. What a beautiful thing to be funding. And I've been listening to a lot of kind of new agey spiritual podcasts recently. Just really tuning into that vibe. And I've been at a couple events where, people are talking about, this one guy was talking about an experience with levitation and contact with extraterrestrial beings, and people are channeling, and it just seems like everything is accelerating in, it's almost hard to say it without sounding too new agey, but I kind of want to embrace, really what, when people use new age as a critique or as a term of disparagement, what they're really speaking from is a kind of a cynicism, and beneath the cynicism, a disappointment. Because really what the term means or implies is that it is possible for everything to change. It is possible for the world of suffering and injustice and violence that we have taken for normal to change into something else. So I appreciate the caterpillar butterfly reference, Roxy, that you brought in, because yeah, the caterpillars. Maybe there's a few kooky ones who are saying, yeah, in just a few days, in just a few weeks, we're all gonna go into this cocoon and we're gonna come out and we're gonna be able to fly. And other caterpillars are like, no, that's ridiculous. Things are always going to be the way that they always have been. We're going to be munching on leaves. That's the way things are. Why? What evidence do you have that anything will ever be any different? So, and you can't really blame the caterpillars. However, many of us, more and more, are having experiences that tell us that a more beautiful world is possible, that tell us that there are possibilities beyond normal. And when you really take in those experiences, then the belief that nothing is ever going to change is actually irrational. Why would you believe that when the impossible or the things that our old story said were impossible are actually happening? So anyway, to get back to the Guatemalan midwives, there is a kind of a trap or a off ramp actually from this evolutionary path, which basically says, well, the midwives and the rainforests and everything suffering and being degraded right now, they'll be fine because of this shift in consciousness is just going to sweep all the problems away. We're going to solve all these problems with trippy new technologies and our psionic abilities and the power of love is going to sweep everything away. So there's really no need to attend to the Guatemalan midwives. After the transition to the fifth dimension, they'll be fine. Well, okay, how does the transition to the fifth dimension happen? It happens as we build a field of love, as we build a field of compassion, as we build a field of generosity. So all of these very practical boots on the ground initiatives that you're speaking of, Roxy, these are what prepares that future and prepares us to be in that future. So there's really no real distinction between the woo-woo new age predictions and the real practical, let's express love in whatever way is available to us, whatever comes across our radar, whatever intersects with our lives. That is the chance to say yes to the world that we know is possible. That's the invitation. So with that, I will I'll just offer that to the group, and anybody who'd like to comment or put a question or ask me to expand on something or talk about something totally else. I'm ready for that.
Hi, Charles. It's Azria. We met a few years ago, and I've been steeping in your teachings for a long time, and I use your language all the time. So thank you for all the gifts that you bring. I'm in the very real sauce of the practical application of building the more beautiful world, which includes land stewardship and 8-figure ecosystem and real estate and hospitality and building space and local impact initiatives, and it's a lot. And I'm constantly in this dance between this gradient of the sort of the infinite field of potential, right? The reality in which the fifth dimension is already here. It's not a future moment. It's just vibrating in a different frequency, and it's just a question of attunement to that frequency. And then sort of the density of the daily realities of really navigating a third dimensional realm, and all of the financial pieces around that specifically, which seem to be sort of the linchpin in the actualization of a lot of projects that have the really pure intention at the heart to be stewarding the more beautiful world, to be literally building it, to be putting in the 80-hour work weeks to make it happen. But then the financial piece is always kind of this interesting, sticking point. I guess I'd love to hear, because Roxanne, you opened the call with a framing on like an alternative to capitalism, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on how do we fearlessly fund the future? Like what is the role of money at scale, like, significant capital, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars moving into the actualization of these visions? And what do you see there in terms of, this frame of like building a field of love and compassion and inclusivity and really also recognizing that there can be no container built if there aren't also boundaries and, clear distinctions between who can participate when and why and what they are contributing in a very measurable way, right? So these are some of the things that I'm tackling in my day-to-day. I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely a lot there. Okay, so maybe I'll just, as far as like the role of money in all of this, and how to use money in service to a more beautiful world, and maybe even how to inspire others to do that as well. So there's maybe you could look at it in terms of the level of the individual or even organization, and then there's also the system level. What we are moving toward is a system in which philanthropy is not even necessary anymore, because what money, okay, so because money goes organically and naturally towards the things that best serve life, human and other than human life. Money is supposed to work that way on a deep level. It is, because what is money? It's simply an agreement, a social agreement that puts value on some things and not others, that gives expression to what is needed. If something is very much needed, then it will command a higher price. Money is a way that we coordinate human creativity and labor and say, here is what we shall do together. It is a way to direct the flow of resources. It's a way to bring gifts and needs into contact. That's what it is supposed to be. Right now, we have a system that rewards activities that do not serve life, that harm life, human and otherwise, that coordinate human creativity toward ends that are making the world more ugly and less alive. So there's a systemic shift that needs to happen. But that doesn't mean that we, and a new agreement, a new set of agreements that reconstitute money as something that is aligned with life and beauty. But that doesn't mean that we sit around waiting for that shift to happen, because in the current circumstance, we can already lay down the energetic template for that shift by using money in the spirit of how it will be used in the future, or what a new kind of money would be used in the future. And so simply that happens every time that we step out of the basic doctrine of economics, which is that human beings seek to maximize their rational self-interest. And instead, we step into a field of generosity and service, and understand that money is a well, it's what everything I said, that it is a tool that coordinates human activity and directs resources. And so when we put that tool in service to something that we care about, and it could be Guatemalan midwives, it could be, the Congo rainforest, it could be, so many things. We are inhabiting the consciousness that is aligned with a different money system. So when you're, but many of us, maybe most of us, maybe all of us to some extent, we have these programs of scarcity, of competition, of self-interest maximization that are operating. And if you're raising funds for something, those are operating in those people too. So there needs to be an invitation to for people to recognize, oh, actually, this is what my money is for. Ultimately, that comes from a recognition that the money isn't really mine.
Not really mine.
Right. So property, ownership, that's another story. And people sometimes use other language, that they're the steward of capital, taking care of it on behalf of its real owner or real project. Even to use the word owner, already kind of leads down the wrong path. But that we understand that everything that we have, including our money, including even our intelligence, our sense of humor, our health, water, sun, earth, all of these were a gift, are a gift. We didn't earn these things. We didn't make them through our own hard efforts. Even if you did work hard to make a fortune, did you earn your ability to work hard? Did you earn your good fortune in being born into whatever circumstances? Did you earn your intelligence? Did you earn your charisma? Did you earn your mother taking care of you when you were little so that you could even grow up? No, didn't earn any of those things. So there's a deep recognition that everything that we have is a gift. When you enter that recognition, then you feel grateful. When you really get that you've received an amazing gift, you feel grateful. And then gratitude gives birth to generosity. You want to give in turn. So that's the kind of psychic field that you want to inhabit and invite others into, to use money in a different way than we've inherited of self-interest maximization, and thereby also to create the field that will transform the money system itself. I hope that wasn't too philosophical, but that's just kind of a general outline.
Yeah, everything you shared resonates deeply, and I think
That's Azria.
Yeah, I was just going to say in response to your share, it's an interesting thing to be building a for-profit entity that has investors bought in largely for the reasons you named, because the ROI is being measured not just financially, but through what is the ripple of impact and what is the return on personal intention too. Like, what are you receiving just by participating in this, right? And these are all the things that we define. And I think there's a cap that I'm creating really interestingly around, or maybe this is what I've been told, is once you start getting into higher numbers and people start writing you checks in the millions, tens of millions, then you're going to have to basically start to adapt your project to fit more of the traditional capitalistic needs, because the people who write those kinds of checks are looking for something that would be, less woo and more grounded, to call like grounded in a paradigm that I believe is falling apart. And I'm constantly in this dance of how much do I just own that that's not what this is, and trust that the right people will show up at all levels of all stages of funding, and how much of it do I, is like the little part of me that looks at myself through the lens of the little girl that hasn't like fully grown up yet, and like, are you being naive? And I love what you say about naivete as well in the book. That chapter really, really spoke to me, but maybe we just need to be naive at this point.
Yeah.
That's our superpower.
It is naive to think that you could create anything that no one has ever created before or anything new. We need naivete, and sometimes naivete, it like that naive belief that yes, I can do this, or that naive belief that oh, you will take this risk, you will let go of guaranteed returns. That can be a self-fulfilling prophecy. So yeah, I think you should err on the side of really revealing what your true motives are, what your true intentions are, and because that kind of gives permission for others to do the same. Because the cynicism is also a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you are with some like large potential investors, and your belief that you're speaking from is something like, well, I know you're not really altruistic. You need to be nudged by this tempting prospect of a 10x return.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to hint at that. Like you are inviting that aspect of themselves into manifestation just by even like having that secret agenda, that I'm going to like hint at these gigantic returns that might be possible from this breakthrough technology. You really want to stay in the field of their highest and best self and invoke that. And that doesn't mean that you're telling them, well, you're going to lose money. No, it's simply that here's what we put first. And financial returns will amplify what we're doing. And when they come, we will put them to good use. But you always just, yeah. And then you have to also look within yourself, to what extent do you have a secret motivation of getting filthy rich? What insecurities does that come from? The insecurities are very real, and they come from a real source. We have all grown up in a world where we see people all the time suffering because they don't have enough money, and money solving people's problems and causing problems when they don't have it. Like our lived experience tells us that it's important to make a lot of money. So it's not like you just have some moral defect that makes you greedy if you have these other motivations. They come from a place that needs to be lovingly witnessed so that it can ease away and reveal underneath it a deeper truth of abundance.
Thank you so much.
Well, I'll jump in. I don't know. It's funny. I use Zoom professionally for a living, and I have no idea how to raise my hand. We do it polite. It's so funny. I just forget how to use these things sometimes. Just like this. Um, Charles, it's nice to see you again. It's so nice to see authors that I respect and I've read both of your books talking together. What a dream come true, Azra. I loved your book. I listened to it out loud. My partner, great British accent, by the way. Amazing. Yeah, I want to ask like a similar question. Maybe it's a branch of the same tree, but scale it down. I work one-on-one with clients a lot, and I think like this theme that we spoke to, or you spoke to last on our last call, this space in between stories, has just really stayed in my bones, and I've just been really sitting with that, and this idea that we're building this, we're dreaming this world, and it's just like we're remembering this place that we can belong, and at the same time we're stuck in this matrix, in this capitalist conquer story. Like we kind of, I mean, like I'm going to share some of my own beliefs. We have to abide by some of that. We're tied to the way that money works in this collective story to some degree now. And yeah, I love the idea of scaling and working with big projects at millions of dollars. And I work with people all the time who are just trying to like, are single moms trying to feed their family and heal their nervous system. And it's and or entrepreneurs are trying to bring their gift into the world and offer their magic, and like don't know how they're going to pay their bills in a week. And I'm
Mhm.
just curious to hear some of your thoughts on how people at that level, which is, I mean, even me, I'm sitting next to my mom, like we're starting a multi-generational compound out here and 10 acres, and thank God, like I'm a white dude with a lot of privilege whose parents are helping dreams come true, and we're building that together. And it's insane how hard it is for me, even working with this much privilege. And I just think about the people who don't have the head start that I have, of like, how do we even start building these dreams at that level? And so, yeah, my question is more uh, how people at all those levels, like working their daily jobs, can hold that psycho-emotional, spiritual component and build that more beautiful world while still kind of belonging to this system that's hyper oppressive
Yeah,
and nervous systems and souls. Yeah, I'll leave it there.
yeah. I mean, if I had some, easy advice to give somebody in that situation, they probably would have already figured it out. If there was like some shortcut out of, their uh, tedious, degrading job, at a fast food restaurant or something like that, and a dead end. I mean, yeah, to like swoop in there and say, well, they just have to, change their beliefs, and then abundance will flow. That's kind of arrogant. Um, and it also ignores real questions about the whole structure of society that we might be able to impact. However, um, it's also true. So okay, there's a subtle prejudice in the mindset of power and privilege. It's kind of paradoxical, but it accepts that this is where power is. Okay, um, so basically, privilege says that I am privileged. Power says that I have power. If you are, say a billionaire, then you're going to believe that you have more power than almost anybody else. If you're a president, you're going to believe that you're the one who is changing the world the most. That belief validates, in a perverse way, it validates the um, uh, value system and um, basic understanding of causality that privilege is based on. It's kind of a subtle point. So let me see, but let's give the counterexample of the person who is working, two jobs, a single mom, one of the single moms, barely making it. Seems like that person has no power. They're just barely getting by, and that they would only have power if somehow there was a more fair economic system. However, what if the world doesn't work the way that power, financial power, and its value system thinks that it works? What if those humble people, through their day-to-day choices to be generous in even small ways, or to be kind, or to be compassionate, or to care for others, what if those actually have more power than anything that a billionaire does? What if the world doesn't work the way that we were told? What if the world is not a machine of force and mass, shifting masses around, and the more force you have at your disposal, the more powerful you are? Like there's a whole other, and this isn't just, my own new agey thing. I mean, cultures around the world, pretty much every culture besides modern culture, understands a mysterious, intimate relation between self and world, understands a kind of non-separation, understands that these small, apparently private choices have cosmic significance. So what I would say I have said this before, to like the, grandma who, there's a local grandmother here I know who's like, her entire life was taking care of kids. And then as soon as she was done with that, they started having grandkids, and now she's taking care of them and nobody thinks she's important. She's not an executive in a corporation. She didn't start an NGO. She didn't start a project. She's not anybody who is recognized as a change maker, a change agent. And so it's not only the capitalist system that sees her as valueless, but it's even the change makers who see her as valueless, who see her as doing something less important than the one who's, starting a project in the ghetto and a social enterprise and a rainforest action network. And like those are the important people, right? The people who are doing a big thing. Well, it's just repeating the pattern of devaluing the people who are actually maybe the most valuable when you shift your lens. So, and all this is just to say that let's not assume that those people are powerless. Now, that doesn't mean that we say, well, okay, so let's not try to change the system. Each of us is located in a different node in the matrix and has different awareness. So it's not that, like maybe your part in all of it is actually to bring economic security to people like that, and then to use your experience to feed into a system change. But like this whole idea of like, okay, we got to change the system, so let's focus on that. How do we do that? Well, we write books called Sacred Economics and hope that powerful people will read them and they will say, oh yes, great idea. It is so unfair, and if we only adopted your solution, Charles, then things would be better. Is that a realistic formula for change? I think my book is influential. I think it has an impact, but it's not because of that. It's not because, the ideas are so brilliant that it's going to change the system from the top. Really what it's doing is it's giving, well, for one thing, it has a lot of love in it, and goodwill. But also it's kind of saying, okay, when we shift in our consciousness, in our perceptions to a story of interbeing. Here is a system that can meet that story, that is aligned with that story here. And then once that shift has happened underneath, people will be like, oh, yeah, of course, we should do it this way. But it doesn't work the other way around, which has taken me some time to learn. Yeah, back in the day, I thought, I would hand in my term paper and the committee of evaluators would say, oh, yes, this is correct. And we're going to, change things now.
Mm. That's really landing for me. I think if I could throw one thing in there that brought up for me is like this idea of the story creation that you've talked about so much. I think the oppression and the way capitalism works can often it's creating hyper individualism, and so we're grabbing at safety everywhere, which is making us really self-concerned. And I think listening to you, I felt like this solutionary response of just collectively coming together. And I think we really need safety to come out of that hyper individualism. That's a belief that I have, and that going about grabbing at a better job and more finances and just chasing that one thing that we're told is going to make us feel safe. There's a lot of pathways towards safety in our everyday experience and our neighbors and our friends, and being able to lean on each other in different ways to create that collective response of maybe a more regulated nervous system on the individual and collective level.
There's a quote from Viktor Frankl that impacted me quite a lot. He was writing of his experience in the concentration camps, in these death camps. And he said, all of us who were in the camps remember those people who went from hut to hut, comforting others and sharing their last piece of bread. They were very few in number, but their existence proves that everything can be taken away from a man except for one thing, which is his ability to respond, to choose his response to circumstances. So these were people with nothing, and they were still generous. And someone was just telling me today about, where was it? The most generous people in the world. Pretty much anywhere where people have almost nothing, you'll find that they're very generous. There's even statistics that bear this out, that the percentage of income that people donate to charity is inversely proportional to their wealth. The poorer people are, the more generous they are. So yeah, I don't think that, we actually need security before we can, dare to be generous. People who are generous feel secure. They have an experience of security. Whereas a billionaire might not feel secure. Like subjectively feels less secure than a peasant in Afghanistan. It's, who's really wealthy here?
Thanks for taking so much time on that, Charles. Really appreciate it.
Well, I'll take advantage of this moment to hop in, really loving the resonance of this entire conversation. I see your hand up, Mama, too. So maybe I'll just default to you, Sophia, if you want to bring your voice in. No? Okay. Well, I asked you this question, Charles, in a personal conversation, and you suggested I bring it up within the community, which makes perfect sense, as it's a question about how to be in council within collective. And last month you talked about this importance of accompaniment and companionship, and I feel coming off of Jamie's inquiry, like this sense of togetherness and solidarity and unity that brings safety and allows for generosity, like really is so needed right now with what we're facing in the world with depression and anxiety and isolation and people being as connected as ever digitally, but so very disconnected within social constructs. And we're, as a collective, daring to re-inhabit the village, as well as coming into council and participating in this active art of sitting in a circle and counseling together and recognizing the wisdom that emerges through the collective mind, the hive consciousness. Within that, we have recently started the initiative from the Stewardship of Inheritance Collective to start break-off councils of women's and men's circles, the chief aim of which is to gather together in the spirit of eradicating rape and war in the next 100 years. Easily an inquiry steeped in naivete, yet how will we ever get there if we don't initially just bring words to it, and explore the possibility of, like, if we did know how to extinguish rape from the face of the planet, what would that look like? And we're going to be holding these women's councils and men's councils individually, and then ultimately weaving them together. And within that specific organization, and also just in general, this idea of coming into a council with different people with different perspectives and histories and lineages and bloodlines and stories and filters. My inquiry for you today is if you had wisdom to offer of how to create these common conversations, what maybe some of the qualities that you feel would be beneficial for us to know as we dare to enter into these circular discussions.
Hmm. I think those situations, those groups that you're creating, offer a really good opportunity to practice speaking and listening in a different way. We're facing a situation on Earth, and we could frame it in terms of rape and war, or many other things. I've been in contact with a woman who's a survivor of satanic ritual abuse. There's like a whole universe there too. I mean, you can go into any of these things. And when you hear the stories, it's so painful that you just want there to be an answer that you can understand and that you can apply. Like, what's the solution? And so that relief, there's like a kind of a psychological relief, or a feeling of control once you think that you have a solution. So people will jump to solutions, they'll jump to these theories of change, they'll jump to explaining things. And here's what we have to do. We need to do this, we need to do that, we need to fight this, we need to stop. Well, is that solution coming from an authentic, clear vision? Or is that coming from the discomfort of not knowing what to do? So here we get back to the space between stories. What to do comes from hearing the stories and feeling what you feel for long enough that if you already knew how to solve it, you would have solved it. If society in general knew what to do, we would do it. But, well, actually on the social level, it's different. I mean, sometimes you have a situation where everybody knows what to do, but nobody does it because, these institutions have their own inertia. But I think that in groups like this that you're creating, it's helpful to avoid jumping too quickly to solutions. Here's what we have to do, because there's knowledge that emerges when you give it time, when you hear the stories without the usual response of blame, of dividing the world into the good and the bad, of simplifying things by explaining through some fundamentalism, here's why that happened. It's because of trauma. It's because of, patriarchy. It's because there are these ready explanations. It's because of greed. It's because of these ready explanations that obscure information because you go to them too quickly, and what is not visible from that particular lens, through that lens, there are things that are not visible that we need to start seeing. When we start seeing them and our knowledge deepens, we start seeing the things that are invisible beneath our ready explanations. Then we have, then we grow in our capacity to change things. So yeah, so beautiful. I would say, in these groups, have a lot of storytelling, a lot of listening, and maybe develop protocols where if a powerful story lands, nobody says anything about it for a while. To that kind of diverts the energy, maybe in person gatherings, this is what I would do if I were holding the space. But these days everybody knows what I'm talking about.
Wow, yeah, I really feel that piece so deeply of not needing to be rushing towards a solution and rather being with each other within it. And it was reflected so beautifully in the first council with women we had last week, that someone shared oh, we're starting a prayer of 100 years. And so it gave us this really expansive timeline of we're not trying to solve this overnight. We're actually simply being together within it and being within the story. And I could feel in my nervous system when we landed there, everything just relaxed. I was like, oh, I see what we're doing here is we're actually just creating the space where then the new thing can emerge. And it's like you said in the chat, Azria, until we're able to lean into the threshold completely, into the discomfort, that's where the threshold for the new potential arises. And it was such a visceral experience of that. And it is in and of itself dismantling those systems that we have to want to fix it now,
Yeah, it's not only rushing to solutions, it's also even rushing to explanations.
Exactly. Definitions and strategy.
Right. Yeah. Right. And whose fault is it, and what fault is it? All of these things are limiting. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, we're coming in for a landing. I'd love to invite my mother on the line here, Sophia. So happy to have you here. This is the woman that birthed me, my true mother. I have many that I've adopted, but this is the biological one and only. And Mama, would so love to have your voice here, and then we'll wrap it up for this month and continue on next moon.
Well, I was really resonating with the subject before this last one, just all about the word that you and I have been sharing lately is resonance, and the importance. And I was laughing to myself when Charles was talking about doing great things, because I used to have that concern that I wasn't doing enough because I wasn't building wells in Africa and doing the giant, big visual, expansive projects that I felt were so important. And then I came to that understanding that what's important is how we live each and every day, and how we treat ourselves and others each and every day. And I think that this is probably the most important aspect of Inheritance Collective, is that we are gathering and we are helping each other to calm our nervous systems, knowing that we are a part of something that is moving towards a greater good without having to define it, but knowing that each and every day how we feel on the inside creates a vibration in the field. And it's not a thing that's the problem. I mean, everything from capitalism, that's not a bad thing. That's a freedom to be an entrepreneur and to create. But what's behind the problem is, like we said, the greed and the fear and the imbalance, which is just the human condition. So we're here to improve the human condition so that we can be the love that we are. And that is done in so many different ways. And actions of our words that we speak, the actions that we take, the responses that we have to those around us and to ourselves. And I just wanted to affirm what Inheritance Collective is growing here, which is a community in which to remember who we are and how we can make a difference by little things every single day. And that affects the entire field. And how can we help others feel into that? Because we have the fear, which leads to the greed, which leads to the violence. Because I've been thinking a lot about the war and the rape subject that we were discussing too. It's like it all comes down to that disconnection with self. And that is what we're striving for when we come together in community and live more in community in the village, which we're meant to live, so we can all feel a sense of belonging. Because that's what is needed more than anything. When we don't have people feeling alone and helpless, we want to have that feeling of connection. So thank you for creating this brainchild, and for everyone that's here, and for those that will continue to be here, and know that each and every day we make a difference. Thank you for bringing all of that up, Charles and Roxanne, and everyone here. I've spoken.
Thank you. Yeah, Roxanne, I'll turn it, back to you.
Thank you. What a potent dialogue. I could sit here for hours and hours and listen to the inquiries of each of you and to your responses and the responses that brings up within us, and looking forward to continuing the journey. And we have this gift of gathering regularly, which I also just want to acknowledge the sense that I have of even this session from last session. Like in the last conversation, some of you were there. It was like more of a discord between the two of us with people in the room. And I feel like that the way the energy has evolved, and in my personal experience, I feel it's been like I've thoroughly enjoyed this more. Not I loved the first one, and I'm honored in any way to be in dialogue with you, but to then like open it to the community and feel the different questions and the different facets of personal insight that arrives through that. Then it's just like it gets deeper. And then the other piece too that I think is a medicine that we're needing right now is that of consistency and longevity, and to have, like, just as nature is, like, to see a thing grow over time. And so I'm looking forward to, as a community, in whatever ways that we engage with each other, be it in person or online, that the conversations get to continue to ferment and develop, and new questions come, and it builds on top of itself. So yeah, thank you, Charles, for your time and your presence. I want to turn it back to you if you have any closing thoughts to share, and then also make the invitation for anyone that registered today. I'll send out information for next month, and the doors are open, and please be welcome to join in this dialogue and bring your inquiries forward. Thank you so much, everybody.
Yeah, nothing more to say. Thank you, everybody, for your presence and attention, and I'm sure I'll be back someday to be with you again.
Thank you so much.